Hello, everyone. My name is Ramona Munteanu, and I'm hosting the interview number 33 for Cremona Musica, which is one of the most important festivals and exhibitions in Europe, and will be held in Cremona from 22nd to the 24th of September. There you can find a lot of things from books, master classes, concerts, exhibitions, new instruments, new CDs released, and you can find many important people from the musical world, classical and not only. And today we have a special guest, and our guest is called Jed Disler. He's a very important pianist and composer, string artist. He's playing from jazz to classical, basically everything. He's composing. He's also a writer, and he has a very beautiful and special radio program, which is called Between the Keys, that he created, and he's holding every Tuesday, right? Every Tuesday,
No, yeah,
and
no. In fact, it's now on Fridays at 3 o'clock and Saturdays at 6 o'clock. They just changed the times. Actually,
sorry, I
very
found this
recently.
on your website.
No, I know, but no,
That's why
nobody
I
could have known this. This is very, very new. But that's okay. We can talk about it later.
perfect. So let's welcome our guests because it's always better that the guests talk themselves about their person,
See, see.
about their activities, and Jack Disles is definitely one of the most multi-faced artists that I have ever met. So let's welcome Jack and let him talk about his activities.
Well, it depends on what activities you want to talk about. But what I can tell you is that I think that from when I was a very young boy, from maybe when I was 10 years old, somehow I knew that there were only four things in my life that I wanted to do and nothing else. The four things were: one, to write music; two, to play the piano. I mean, I played many instruments when I was young, but I played them all badly. But eventually I settled on the piano because that seemed to come easily. So that's two of those things. Then from a young age, for some reason, I always wanted to write record reviews, reviewing music in some ways, because I used to love to read reviews all the time of recordings, and I collected recordings. So, and then the fourth thing that I always wanted to do is have my own radio show, because I listened to the radio all the time when I was a little boy. And I always imagined myself being a radio host. And it was a fantasy for years, but it only happened very, very late in my life. But at least I can say now is that the four things I wanted to do professionally as a little boy, finally all four came true, in my old age, I guess.
So you feel a realized artist, I think, because you're doing so many things and so many amazing things for
Too many
art and for
things.
music.
Well, it's called trying to make a living, but I don't teach really. I'm not affiliated with a university anymore. I used to teach, but I mean, now I will teach master classes and do residencies, but that's a little bit different, and that I enjoy very much.
I understand. You have so many projects. This morning, for example, when I was taking a coffee, I was listening to your Thelonious Monk, your compositions, improvisations on his music, and I even heard Le Sacré de Printemps, or the Rite of Spring,
Oh,
some,
yes. I steal
moment hit
from
me like this.
I steal from everybody.
Yeah. You have a very original style as a composer, and if you want to talk more about your compositions, about your improvisations, about the
Well, I think with the Thelonious Monk project was something where I played a lot of jazz when I was younger, when I was in my teens and my 20s. And then I gravitated more toward classical music, mainly out of guilt, because I thought, well, I really should be trying to improve my technique, and I really should be a more complete kind of pianist. So I started playing more classical music in public, and I would sometimes take jobs that I had absolutely no qualifications for. Like I would get a telephone call saying, "Can you play the Aaron Copland Sonata for a dance company?" And I'd say yes. And then I would think, "Oh my God, how am I going to learn this? Because I don't have the kind of ability." And then somehow I would do it, you know. I mean, so and I think with composing, I think I was composing from an early age. I think I'm much more creative than recreative. And so that was something that I think I had much better training as a composer than as a pianist. I had very good composition training. So, so for years, I've written a lot of music, not very much for orchestra, but mostly chamber, vocal, and a lot of things for piano because I play the piano and pianists seem to want my music for the piano, and that's perfectly fine because I think it's a really great tradition. But the Thelonious Monk project came because back in 2011, when my first wife died, I felt that I had to completely reinvent myself, and I decided to regress to my childhood and to maybe try playing jazz again, which I hadn't done in years. And I found that when I was improvising, it was not coming out sounding like the generic jazz of my youth. It was coming out sounding more, I don't know, original is not the right word, but it was sounding very different. And 2012 was the 30th anniversary of Thelonious Monk's death. So I thought, why don't I do an attention-getting project and try to play his complete songs in one night? Which meant that I don't have to improvise on every song, but what I did was I would rearrange the songs so that they would have a very different sound than what the originals were. I think if Monk was alive, he would absolutely hate what I did. In one or two instances, I played exactly what he had wrote because you can't improve on it. But there were many instances where I would improvise some things, but then I would work out other things. So anyway, the end result was I made a CD 5 years ago where I recorded the complete Monk, but then we decided to issue some of the songs, not all of them, and we were hoping that the entire thing would be available as a download, and that hasn't happened yet, but it's all recorded. But the point is that it doesn't always sound like jazz, but it doesn't always sound like contemporary classical music. I don't know what it sounds like, but I would say that what I think I accomplish in this recording is that you get the kind of timekeeping that is characteristic of jazz pianists, where you imply where the beat is and you have that kind of an absolute rock solid timekeeping. But I also have the technique and the sound and the touch and the variety of nuance that you get from great classical pianists, or at least that's what I hope to do. There are not too many improvising pianists who I think bring those qualities of classical technique to the improvising. I would say maybe Keith Jarrett is one of the few, but I think I do accomplish that in this recording if I can be immodest, but I'm very proud of the recording in any case.
Congratulations. In fact, you have to be proud. I wanted to tell you that you're very modest also, which I like a lot. It's a quality that I always admire in big artists because I think to be humble and modest is a very rare quality in our times. And
I'm just being accurate, I mean, if I do something well, I'm very happy to say I do it well, but I have tremendous limitations. And so, you're not going to hear me play a Mozart concerto in front of people. If you have Roberto Proceda playing Mozart, I mean, there's no reason for me to play Mozart, but then I can play Frederick Rzewski maybe. So,
yeah.
So it balances out.
Everyone has their own qualities, no? And we have to always improve and show what we can do best. So, of course, if your big quality is to improvise and to create these original, completely original scores and sounds and harmonies, it's something that, for example, me or some other classical musicians cannot do. So we just admire people like you that
Well,
can do all of
classical,
these things.
that's very sweet of you to say, but classical musicians have the ability to improvise because you can improvise just by putting your hands on the keyboard and seeing what comes out. And
So,
maybe you're not going to like what comes out at first, but you just keep doing it and then you can improve on it. I think that I think a lot of classical pianists who try to improvise, they judge themselves within 2 seconds. They'll play something and say, I don't like it. But that's not the point. The point is not to like it or dislike it. The point is to be in the moment where, okay, what did I do? Where did I put my hands? What does it sound like? What do you do with it? It's really like if you're an actor and you're doing improvising exercises as an actor, or if you're a comedian and you have to know how to be in the moment and to respond and there are techniques of doing this. It's not pure unadulterated improvisation. You can have some pre-planning, but I think there are a lot of tools that you use to work your way through these challenges, and if I'm playing written music, for instance, if I make a mistake or I play a chord with the wrong voicing, I know how to get out of it because I can improvise. So I know what the harmony is and I know what's coming next. So you can still make a valid performance, but I think that's how the different experiences feed in and out of each other.
oh, that's great, really. I always wanted to improvise and to learn to learn this skill, to improve this skill, because I was improvising when I was a little girl, but I'd like a lot to improve it. And thank you for this encouragement, no?
Yes.
Because
Now,
it's true, everyone can.
right. Now, I'm not saying you have to sit down and play a perfect Mozart cadenza, but, there are things one has to work at if you want to improvisation is a skill and an art, but one can approach it in many different ways. And, jazz is one way, but but classical musicians don't really learn this except for organists, where you really learn how to improvise fugues. And, I didn't study jazz, but I did have good training learning how to play from figured bass, playing continuo and to read the figured bass. And that was incredibly helpful when I was young, because if I had to accompany like the Bach B minor mass or the Magnificat from the piano, and I couldn't sight read all the counterpoint, at least I'd know what the harmony was, so I can at least keep going, which is the continuo thing. That's what you learn how to do. It's learning how to fake it.
Yes,
I'm the
but it's
biggest
very
fake.
important.
I'm the best faker in the world.
No, you're very funny to say this.
Oh,
Sometimes
I
it's not
am.
faking. Sometimes it's also feeling more free and more calm when you play. Because sometimes also improvising or playing jazz, I think it's also having more fun, right? Because you're not, you don't have this fear of making mistakes, and you're just improvising. So when you improvise, I think you have more freedom and more relaxation
Yeah,
while playing.
yeah. Well, anyway, so
So let's
that's
go back to the classical now, because I'm very curious, and we are very curious to find out more about your project of the Mahler symphonies.
oh yeah.
Uh,
Yeah, this is so
yeah,
strange. I've been playing a lot of Mahler symphonies and piano four-hand arrangements with different pianists all over the world. Well, at least in the United States and in Italy, also London. And I'm also playing the Shostakovich Ninth Symphony with Peter Jablonski at the Karlskrona Festival in Sweden in mid-October, and that's the Shostakovich's own arrangement for four hands, and it's a wonderful arrangement. It's very effective, and Peter Jablonski is one of the great pianists, so I'm really looking forward to collaborating with him. And we're also premiering some mazurkas that I composed for piano four hands that are very strange little pieces. They don't sound like Chopin mazurkas at all. They sound more like Jimi Hendrix. But the Mahler project, now this is so strange how I got the idea for this. You won't believe it, but about 4 or 5 years ago in Paris, my wife had an exhibition of her artwork. She's a painter. And we were in Paris for the exhibition, and I was sleeping and wanted to play all the Mahler symphonies. It just came as a dream. So then I just started to talk about it with my colleagues and try to make some ideas happen. And then, of course, something called the pandemic happened. But then in 2021, when concerts started coming back, I was invited to play the Ninth Symphony, which is, just one of the greatest pieces ever to play. And I played it. I was supposed to play it with Stuart Goodyear, but unfortunately he had gotten COVID. So my friend Jerome Kuderna, who is my oldest pianist friend in the world, and he's one of my dearest colleagues, we had played the Ninth together, reading it, so he knew the piece. So he came out from California, and we played it over 6 concerts at the Greenwood Cemetery in Brooklyn, New York. And this is where Leonard Bernstein is buried. So it's kind of appropriate, the Mahler Ninth. I'm sure that Bernstein was turning in his grave with our performance, but we did pretty well. And then we've played it several times since. And then I played the Mahler Fifth Symphony with Massimo Giuseppe Bianchi, wonderful pianist who is based in Varallo in Piemonte, and he's now teaching in Beijing, but he's a wonderful pianist, and we played many concerts in the past together before. So we played the Fifth Symphony in Biella in Piemonte, and also at Piano City in Milano, and that was quite wonderful. And I'm going to play the Second Symphony, The Resurrection, in London with another Italian pianist, wonderful young pianist, Gabriele Baldocci. Do you know him?
Yes, I know him. He's very famous in Italy.
I know, and he plays with Martha Argerich a lot, and the fact that he's going to play Mahler with me, somebody playing with Argerich, I hope he's not going to be disappointed, but we talked about this before the pandemic, playing the Second Symphony, and then next year I will be playing the Fourth Symphony, the Third, and so each year I'll be adding more and more, and we hopefully will do all of them. But then also 2024 is the Bruckner anniversary, so maybe we have to play a Bruckner symphony, who knows. But what I love about playing the four-hand arrangements is that it's a great way to get to know the works directly, actively, rather than passively, rather than listening to a recording, because you're exploring the structure, if not the orchestration. And audiences seem to like getting to hear these pieces in an intimate kind of way. It really has to do with musical salons again. And also what I love about these arrangements is sometimes one has to improvise, because sometimes there are too many notes that the arranger writes, or the hands get in the way. So you have to make all kinds of adjustments, or you have to do tempos that are different from what the orchestra version is in order so that it doesn't sound so mechanical on the piano. It's an interesting process, but I love this, and also, it's a lot of fun. And also working with so many pianists, and it kind of keeps me honest as a player, I think.
Wow, this is great. I also love four hands and two pianos my whole life. I was playing this, and by the way, I have played Rite of Spring and Petrushka by Stravinsky, which is an
Oh
amazing
yeah,
arrangement. I don't
Rite
know
of
if you
Spring.
play guitar.
Yeah, the Rite of Spring is so difficult for hands because your hands are always
Yes,
crossing over. So you have to make all kinds of adjustments. Yeah, that's
but it sounds great.
yeah, but well, I think Stravinsky really wrote that more for rehearsal purposes. I don't think he wrote it with the intention of performing it, but people do perform it. I think Petrushka works a little bit better, but there's some he also did a wonderful two piano arrangement of Agon, which works very, very well because that's a very kind of percussive piece with a lot of short phrases. And I think that that's a very effective arrangement. And you don't really hear that very much. Do you know that Shostakovich arranged the Symphony of Psalms of
Wow.
Stravinsky for piano four hands? And it's a really good arrangement.
Oh, great. Thank you for this amazing information because I really love the repertoire for hands, and I really think we should play more for
Well, why
hands,
don't we?
especially.
Well, let's play together next year. We can play in Cremona.
This was done. I really love for hands. Yeah, thank you for the invitation.
I do too. Yeah, I mean, well, Roberto and Alessandra, they are such a fantastic team together. I love their Mendelssohn recordings, and they made that fantastic recording of the Gounod four-hand sonata, which is a fantastic work. Nobody plays that.
They are really amazing pianists
Oh my
and
God.
teachers and
And
people.
how?
Yeah, they are amazing both.
And how, indeed. Yeah.
I wanted to ask you something else. You told me that you prefer playing live than recording in the studio. And I wanted to ask you how come and if you want to talk about it.
Oh, I think I think it's just a psychological thing for me because even though you can go back and listen in the studio, I find that I just feel that there's a lot of pressure, especially if I'm recording classical music, and I've never had even when the recordings have come out very well, it's something that for me it's never really been enjoyable. If I have a producer who is really nice and compassionate, that makes things very easy. But I've also had some producers who like to try to score points off of you, who like to show that they know more than you do. And I think the thing with I think that a producer has to put the performer at ease, and but also to try to get the best results from them. And they're, it's a two-way street. But but I think with live performance, you like I said, if something happens, I can get out of it, and I'm very happy that my more successful live performances, are preserved. So, that at least I have that, and I'm very grateful that a lot of concerts I did when I was younger are preserved because there's some pieces I played that I don't think I could ever play again at this point in my life.
Wow, this is amazing. So I think that everybody has to know what fit best for them.
But everybody's
I mean,
different.
like
Everybody's
playing
different.
live. Sorry, no, I think if you will feel better playing live, then just enjoy it and do it. No,
Yeah.
I mean the studio recording is not for everyone. Now we're getting close to the end of our interview, so I would like you to talk about Cremona, about our performance in Cremona with Juliana Soltis, because I know you're presenting some pieces from her pieces with American composers.
That's a very happy subject because she has a CD that will be coming out pretty soon of music of American women composers from different from different parts of the 20th century. And we record, and I've collaborated with her on some of the selections on the CD, which we will be playing together in Cremona. And what's interesting is that I first got to know her because I actually reviewed some of her CDs, because she made a very interesting CD of the Bach cello suites where she's incorporating improvisation, and it's a really interesting stylistic approach. And I wrote a review of this, and then we were supposed to get together for dinner when she was in New York touring with her Bach project. But then, of course, the pandemic happened. So we wound up meeting by Zoom, and we struck up a friendship. We seemed to have a lot of common interests, and we kept the dialogue going. And then we decided, let's try to play together. Let's see if we're able to play together. And that seemed to work out very well. So we just read through a lot of music. And so we made some recordings back in January of pieces by Helen C. Crane, who's a fascinating American composer who no one knows. And I think these are world premiere recordings. We recorded some Amy Beach, a work of Florence Price, and also an arrangement of Troubled Water by Margaret Bonds, which is a piece for solo piano that many, many people play. But Juliana was able to track down a cello arrangement of the piece, which I think is very effective. And it's a real virtuoso showcase for the cello and also for the piano. There's some parts that sound like Rachmaninoff in there. So, and that's a lot of fun to play. And I'm very happy that she's coming to Cremona because, Cremona is the string capital of the world. And I think she's going to enjoy seeing a luthier on every street corner, And I'm always very happy to be in Cremona because I have friends and colleagues who are returning, and I'm looking forward to playing, but also just going to see the concerts and reconnecting with friends and colleagues and exchanging ideas. And it's really a lovely community where it isn't just professional networking, that's part of it, but it's also people who care about music and who share ideas and who maybe want to collaborate and do projects. And it's really a gathering point with people who all have the same values. So that's why I'm always very happy to return to Cremona. Not to mention the wonderful food, of course, but
the Italian food, of course. I'm really sure that it will be an amazing experience. And your performance with Juliana Soltis will be on the 24th of September at 2 p.m., right? Yeah, because you told me.
Yes, exactly. So I hope you'll all come to see it. I think it's going to be quite nice.
I'm sure it's going to be very nice, and we invite everyone to join us in this amazing performance of Isler and Juliana Soltis. And we invite you to follow our pages of Instagram, Facebook, and LinkedIn. And we want to thank Jed Isler so much for having this time together and sharing his very intimate opinions and very intimate impressions about his music and about Cremona.
Grazie mille.
Okay, goodbye, Jed. So see you soon in Cremona.
Okay. Ciao. A presto.
Bye.
Okay. Ciao.